And now, ladies and gentlemen, Feinstein's at the Lowe's Regency is proud to present Harvey Granat.
In a mountain greenery where God paints the scenery, just two crazy people together. While you love your lover, let blue skies be your coverlet. If it rains, we'll laugh at the weather. And if you're good, I'll I'll search for wood, and you can cook while I stand looking. Beans will get no keener reception in a beanery, bless our mountain greenery home. We'll take Manhattan, the Bronx, and Staten Island too. It's lovely going through the zoo. It's very fancy on old Delancey Street, you know. The subways charm us so, the balmy breezes blow to and fro. And tell me what street compares with Mott Street in July. Sweet push carts gently gliding by. The great big city's a wondrous toy, made for a girl and boy. We'll turn Manhattan into an Isle of Joy. We'll go to Yonkers where true love conquers in the wilds. We'll starve together, dear, in Childs. Anybody remember Childs? We'll go to Coney and eat bologna on a roll. In Central Park we'll stroll, where our first kiss we stole, soul to soul. And with our babies we'll go see A.B.'s Irish Rose. I hope they'll see it close someday. The great big city's a wondrous toy, made for a girl and boy. We'll turn Manhattan into an Isle of Joy. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you so much. Welcome to Rogers with a Lot of Heart. I want to take you on a trip to a period of about 20 years, from the early 1920s to the early 1940s. And you may sit there and say, oh, old music he's going to sing. Because that's the period of time that gave birth to the great American songbook. And what you're going to hear tonight are the gems that came out of that period and are with us to this day. That was a period of time when you could get up in the morning and open up any one of the New York newspapers and say, what are we going to do tonight? Are we going to see the Gershwin show? We're going to see the Jerome Kern show, the Irving Berlin show, the Vincent Yeoman show? Or how about these new kids on the block? Richard Rodgers and Lorenz Hart. Well, the new kids on the block for the next 20 years made their mark in an indelible way. They wrote in that period of time a couple of hundred songs. I'm going to do them for you this evening. We'll stop at about 11 o'clock to stretch, and 6 o'clock will be a light continental breakfast. So sit back and relax and enjoy. You think I'm kidding? Thou swell, thou pretty, thou sweet, thou grand, wouldst kiss me pretty, wouldst hold my hand. Both thine eyes are cute too, what they do to me. Hear me holler, I choose a sweet lollapalooza in thee. I feel so rich in a hut for two rooms and kitchen, I'm sure would do. Give me just a plot of not a lot of land, and thou swell, thou witty, thou grand. I took one look at you, that's all I meant to do, and yet my heart stood still. My feet could step and walk, my lips could move and talk, and yet my heart stood still. Though not a single word was spoken, I could tell you knew that unfelt clasp of hand told me so well you knew. I never lived at all until the thrill of that moment when my heart stood still. Though not a single word was spoken, I could tell you knew that unfelt clasp of hand told me so well you knew. I never lived at all until the thrill of that moment when my heart stood still. Thank you. Thank you so much. Those two wonderful songs were from the first hit show that they had. It was called The Connecticut Yankee. And those of you who have read Mark Twain, the great story Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, was the storyline from which this was adapted. Every night, that first song, Thou Swell, stopped the show completely, because the entire ensemble would be singing it, and it was just a thrilling moment in the show. The second song, My Heart Stood Still, the boys almost lost it completely. They had written the song a good year and a half before they signed up to do the show, Connecticut Yankee, and they needed money. And Richard Rodgers used to play his songs at the parties. He was a very social animal. And at one of these parties, a very prosperous, well-known, productive producer from England heard the song and made a deal on the spot. He bought the rights to the song, and the boys gave it up. Along came Flo Ziegfeld, the great Ziegfeld from Ziegfeld Follies, and he had a star, Marilyn Miller, and it was his lot in life to keep her pleased because he wanted her to star in as many shows as possible. She heard that song. She fell in love with it. So Ziegfeld went to the English producer, offered him $10,000. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, except in those days versus today, it was the equivalent to about $250,000 in today's dollars. And a deal was about to be made when the boys heard about it. The boys went to that British producer, and they struck their own deal for $5,000 and a major portion of the royalties from that song for the life of the song. And that's how they got it back, and that's how it got in the show. Isn't that an interesting story? Please say yes. Spring is here. Why doesn't my heart go dancing? Spring is here. Why isn't the waltz entrancing? No desire, no ambition leads me. Maybe it's because nobody needs me. Spring is here. Why doesn't the breeze delight me? Stars are here. Why doesn't the night excite me? Maybe it's because nobody loves me. Spring is here. I know that spring is here. Spring is here, I hear. Thank you. That was the title song from a show called Spring is Here. And it had a very sophisticated plot. Act 1, boy falls in love with girl. Act 2, girl leaves boy. Act 3, everybody tell me, they got back together again and lived happily ever after. But what was interesting about the show is another song that's in that show. So many times in the last chapters of his life, Richard Rodgers was asked, of all the songs that you've written, what's your favorite? And he wouldn't answer it. He said, they're like my children. I love them all the same. But the great radio host and musical expert, Jonathan Schwartz, late in Richard Rodgers' life, asked him, what's his favorite song? And he finally did get the answer. And this was the song from the same show, Spring is Here. With a song in my heart, I behold your adorable face. Just a song at the start, and it soon is a hymn to your grace. The music swells, I'm touching your hand. It tells me you're standing here, and at the sound of your voice, heaven opens its portals to me. Can I help but rejoice that a song such as ours came to be? And I always knew I could live life through with a song in my heart for you. The sound of your voice, heaven opens its portals to me. Can I help but rejoice that a song such as ours came to be? I always knew I could live life through with a song in my heart for Thank you. Anybody ever hear of Brant Lake Camp in the Adirondacks? Hands? Good, okay. Believe it or not, that's where Richard Rodgers and Lorenz Hart first met. Oh, they were counselors. And in those days in camping, it's not like camps of today. When they put on shows in those days, you had great talents and great budding talents. I mean, just it's a who's who of people in show business from camping. Now, what's interesting, things you will learn here that you cannot learn in the Oak Room at the Algonquin or any other place, is that his first collaborator was Oscar Hammerstein II. Everyone thinks of that as his second major collaboration. Well, he first met Oscar Hammerstein at camp, and they worked together, but nothing caught on in the partnership. But he did connect with Larry Hart. I think when Neil Simon wrote The Odd Couple, he may have had these two in mind. Because let me tell you, Richard Rodgers, handsome, self-assured, socially accepted, wide circle of friends, son of a very well-to-do doctor and his wife, had everything going for him. Larry Hart, I will describe him as he described himself. He said he looked like a gnome. He was about this tall. He was homely, he had very few friends, if any. He came from a dysfunctional family. His father had a series of business interests that were all kind of on the curb, slightly dishonest. And yet when the two of them got together, it was extraordinary, the magic that happened, the poetry of heart and the musical genius of Rogers. And one of the best examples of this was a show in 1935 called Billy Rose's Jumbo. Now, Billy Rose was a bigger-than-life producer. Everything had to be done big. Well, he took over the Hippodrome Theater. You may know the Hippodrome today as the Hippodrome Garage on 44th Street and 6th Avenue. That was the Hippodrome Theater, right. Were you in the original production? Yes. Okay. Well, anyway, and he completely redid the theater as to like a circus tent. And he hired hundreds of people for the production. He had aerialists, he had horseback riders, he had ballet companies, he had dancers, singers, choral groups, the entire Paul Whiteman Orchestra, and the two stars of the show, Jimmy Durante in the lead as the owner of the circus, and Rosie the elephant, who played the part of Jumbo, right? And got typecast thereafter. People questioned their sanity, Richard Rogers and Larry Hart, saying, this show's never going to get put on. What are you giving your time and energy to this for? Well, Billy Rose did not like to put a lot of money in his own shows, if any, but he had friends in high places. And in this case, it was Jock Whitney who put up the money for this show. And thank goodness he did, because from it came some wonderful songs. The most beautiful girl in the world picks my ties out, eats my candy, drinks my brandy. The most beautiful girl in the world, the most beautiful star in the world, isn't Garbo, isn't Dietrich, but a neat trick who could make me believe it's a beautiful world. Social, not a bit, natural kind of wit. She'd shine anywhere, and she hasn't got platinum hair. The most beautiful house in the world has a mortgage. What do I care? It's goodbye care when my slippers are next to the ones that belong to that one and only beautiful girl in the world. Beautiful girl in the world. Beautiful world. She's social, not a bit, natural kind of wit. She'd shine anywhere, and she hasn't got platinum hair. The most beautiful house in the world has a mortgage. What do I care? It's goodbye care when my slippers are next to the ones that belong to that one and only beautiful girl in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Cheryl Segall.
Sit there and count your fingers. What can you do? lucky little girl blue. Sit there and count the raindrops falling on you. It's time you knew. All you can count on is the raindrops that fall on little girl blue. No use, old girl, you may as well surrender. Your hope is getting slender. Why won't somebody send a tender blue boy to cheer a little girl blue? When I was very young, the world was younger than I, as merry as a carousel. The circus tent was strung with every star in the sky above the ring I love so well. Now the young world has grown old. Gone are the tinsel and gold. No use, old girl, you may as well surrender. Your hope is getting slender. Why won't somebody send a tender blue boy to cheer a little girl blue? My romance doesn't have to have a moon in the sky. My romance doesn't need a blue lagoon standing by. No month of May, no twinkling stars, no hideaway, no soft guitars. My romance doesn't need a castle rising in Spain, nor a dance to a constantly surprising refrain. Wide awake, I can make my most fantastic dreams come true. My romance doesn't need a thing but you. Doesn't need a castle rising in Spain, nor a dance to a constantly surprising refrain. Wide awake, I can make my most fantastic dreams come true. My romance doesn't need a thing but you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my daughter, Cheryl Segall. We almost canceled her the last minute because in the rehearsal this afternoon, one of the waiters, one of the old-timers that's been here, came up to me and he said, "You know, she's better than you." Now, one quick story, because all of those songs were from the wonderful Jumbo. My favorite story about Jumbo was years later when the movie came out, and some of you may remember this, okay? Jimmy Durante starred in the movie, and my favorite scene, the circus was in bankruptcy. Its biggest asset was Jumbo, absolutely. So he quietly stole the elephant, and he's walking down the street with it. And all of a sudden, there's a whole contingent of police. And the Irish chief looks at him and says, "And where are you going, fella, with that elephant?" And he stands in front of him and says, "Officer, what elephant?" Sleepless nights and the daily fights, quick toboggan when you reach the heights. I miss the kisses and I miss the bites. I wish I were in love again. The broken dates and the endless waits and the hateful hating and the loveless hates. The conversation with the flying plates. I wish I were in love again. No more pain, no more strain. Now I'm sane, but I would rather be pulled out fur of cat and cur. The fine mismating of him and her. I learned my lesson, but I wish I were in love again. My funny Valentine, sweet comic Valentine, you make me smile with my heart. Your looks are laughable, unphotographable, yet you're my favorite work of art. Is your figure less than Greek? Is your mouth a little weak? When you open it to speak, are you smart? So don't change a hair for me. Not if you care for me. Stay, little Valentine, stay. Each day is Valentine's Day. Those two songs were from Babes in Arms. Babes in Arms was a great big Broadway smash. Interesting, when you hear My Funny Valentine, you think of Valentine's Day, and you think of, he loves her, and she loves him, and all that stuff. Believe it or not, the main male character in the show's name was Valentine. And so when the song was written, it was My Funny Valentine, Sweet Comic Valentine, talking about the main character. But the song in Babes in Arms that really kind of caught steam and had a life of its own is a song that talks of a subject that had never been done on Broadway before, déjà vu. When you've seen someone and you think you've seen them before, or you've heard something, you may have heard it before. And when they wrote this song, they had no idea that it would catch fire way beyond Broadway. And they started getting letters from all over the world, from psychiatrists and psychologists, saying that they used this lyric in some of their therapy and some of the speeches that they gave. So when I sing this song, think about your own life and see if it resonates with you. It seems we stood and we talked like this before. We looked at each other in the same way then. I know you, but I can't remember where or when. The clothes you're wearing are the clothes you wore. The smile you're smiling, you were smiling then, but I can't remember where or when. Some things that happen for the first time seem to be happening once again. And so it seems that we have met before, and we laughed before, and we loved once before, but who knows where or when. Some things that happen for the first time, they seem to be happening once again. And so it seems that we have met before, and we laughed once before, and we loved before. But who knows where or when? Thank you. Dorothy Rogers, in an introduction to a songbook of Rogers and Hart, tells of the work habits of her husband and Larry Hart. He used to walk around. They did a lot of their composing in the music room at the Rogers residence, and Larry Hart always had a big long cigar in his mouth and a pad and pencil in his hand. And she said there were several times over the years where she called the fire department because he used to like to work near the window where they had very expensive drapes, and they would catch on fire, and this is what happened. But they did some wonderful things together. There was a show that they did the score for called The Boys from Syracuse. It was not about an upstate fraternity. Okay. It was actually based on Shakespeare's Comedy of Errors, and it was the first time that a Shakespearean play was set to music. And this was some of the music. This can't be love because I feel so well. No sobs, no sorrows, no sighs. This can't be love, I get no dizzy spell. My head is not in the sky. My heart does not stand still, just hear it beat. It is too sweet to be loved. This can't be love because I feel so well. And yet I love to look in your eyes. Hit it, guys, hit it. Does not stand still, just hear it beat. This is too sweet to be loved. This can't be love because I feel so well. And yet I love to look in your eyes. Falling in love with love is falling for make-believe. Falling in love with love is playing the fool. Caring too much, just a juvenile fancy. Learning to trust is just for children in school. I fell in love with love one night when the moon was full. I was unwise with eyes unable to see. I fell in love with love everlasting. But love fell out. Yes, love fell out, yes. Falling for make-believe. I fell in love with love one night when the moon was full. I was unwise with eyes unable to see. I fell in love with love everlasting. And love fell out. Yes, love fell out. Yes, love fell out with me. You know what I figured? I figured we were here a couple of months ago to see Tony Martin, 95 years old, and still singing. I said, then I can swing. Why can't I swing? I'm 92. I want to tell you, we've all heard of flop shows, opened and closed, but left behind a beautiful song. A good example of that was a show that they wrote called Higher and Higher. And I love this song, and I hope you enjoy it. The show may have closed, but the song lingered on for many, many, many years. Once I laughed when I heard you saying that I'd be playing solitaire, uneasy in my easy chair. It never entered my mind. Once you told me I was mistaken, that I'd awaken with the sun and order orange juice for one. It never entered my mind. You have what I lack myself. to scratch my back myself. Once you warned me that if you scorned me, I'd sing the maiden's prayer again and wish that you were there again to get into my hair again. It never entered my mind. Isn't that a pretty song? Thank you. Now, I will tell you a story, and you will go out of here tonight, and you're going to say, I still don't believe he told this story. But I'm going to share it with you. Because what happened opening night of that show is a never-to-be forgotten moment. People usually file out of a theater, and they're enthusiastic, and they're talking about the show, and the songs that they sang, and so on. This audience was in dead silence. Totally dead silence. Now, for this story, you have to know two things. You have to know that in the second act of the show, there was an animal. The animal was a seal. The other thing you need to know, if anyone speaks French, is that the French word for seal is P-H-O-G-U-E, but it's pronounced fuck. Now, here was the audience filing out, and I didn't tell the story yet, in dead silence, except for one woman, a French wife of a noted New York attorney. And she was heard to say, "Darling, that was the most beautiful fucking show I have ever seen." True story. You don't hear that in the Oak Room. Well, unfortunately, Larry Hart went downhill between drinking, drugs, depression. Matter of fact, the very last show that they worked on together, Pal Joey, was part of it was written in his hospital room, believe it or not. And they were advised, again, not to do this show because the main character in the show was a heel. He was a nightclub owner that was a heel. And people, they said, would not relate to that. People are not going to come to the show. But it had this marvelous score. It had a book that was originally written by John O'Hara, and it had as its star, and there's a quiz coming up here, it had as its star a wonderful Broadway sensation who went on to become one of the leading musical comedy stars of all time. Anyone want to hazard a guess who that was? Who said Gene Kelly? Gene Kelly. Charge that man twice. Well, they did the show, and some of the songs in the show, hope you'll enjoy. If they ask me, I could write a book about the way you walk and whisper and look. I could write a preface on how we met that the world would never forget. And the simple secret of the plot is just to tell her that I love her a lot. Let that world discover as my book ends how to make two lovers of friends. Wild again, beguiled again, a simpering, whimpering